Yeah, I'm here. Oh my gosh, I am running late with everything. I realized last minute I was not nearly as prepared as I thought. Is the audio working? Are we even live? I don't know. I'm that screwed up right now. Okay, I am going to be painting a clownfish and coral in, oh my gosh, everything's messing up, in acrylics. And you guys can see how I use the tracing and transfer paper. I meant to have this done already so we could get right into it because I'm afraid this is going to be a fairly long painting compared to usual, and I need a stylus. What took me so long is I couldn't find my transfer paper. Okay, let's see, maybe over here. I have so much stuff on my workbench because I'm working in an oil painting, so I've got or on an oil painting, not tonight, and everything is all over the place. This is a hot mess. Okay, seriously, where's the stylus? Should be. Usually it's just kind of sitting here or here, and I am not seeing it in either of those locations. Like I said, I've got crap everywhere. Oh, where else can I look? I'll just drag everything out of this because it's probably in here. If it's not in the other place. I was hoping that wasn't the... Did something just fall? I was hoping it... This is not fun. You know, what's really annoying is I have multiple styluses, but I don't know where any of them are. Like, how do you have... It's kind of like not, you know, being an artist and not knowing where a single pencil is. This is actually not uncommon for me when I've been oil painting because I use a completely, there it is, found it, a different set of supplies. Here we go. Okay, so the first thing that we're gonna do, if you don't already have this image, you can download it over at patreon.com/lacree. The direct link for this specific image is in the description. You do not need to be a Patreon member to get it. It's free for anybody. And what I've done is pre-drawn it out on a piece of tracing paper. My canvas is already painted this dark navy, almost black, but it's kind of like a navy indigo blue. And I'm just going to put that transfer paper under, and we're going to trace over the drawing. And the reason for that, you can see how it shows up. The reason that we do this versus drawing straight onto the canvas is that I don't end up with a bunch of eraser marks. Any eraser marks I needed to do can be done on the tracing paper. So it keeps everything nice and clean. And we're just going to quickly go through this. Fish lips. Whenever I freehand, I do a lot of erasing. So even if you want to freehand, I still wouldn't recommend freehanding directly on the project. Little clownfish gill, and we've got a mushroom, and I'm just gonna, you can see it, it's really quick. Maybe quicker if I did it before the live stream, but whatever, we're not going to talk about that. And these palithoas, I don't really care if they're perfect, I just need a bunch of circle-y guys. Now, what I will be doing tonight is a little bit more stylized. Well, I mean, it always is going to be on a live stream, but especially so because I do a lot of marine life, and you kind of get your own way of painting things that are not necessarily super accurate. You just like how they look, and that is really true for me when it comes to marine life. It looks sort of realistic, but I'm not going for well, I guess it is technically still photorealistic. I'm not going for hyperrealism, or, you know, next step up from photorealism. Not, you know, I never really do hyperrealism, but good enough. Because I've painted marine life so long, I've kind of developed a look that I just like, and that is what we are going to be doing tonight. I may have to adjust the lighting. Now, I recommend hang on to your transfer paper or tracing paper. Don't just crumple it up and toss it until the painting's done, because if, let's say you were like, wow, the clownfish's eye somewhere along the line, this doesn't look right. You can hold this up and check your work. So if you knew your original line drawing was correct, that'll help. I saw a paintbrush I wanted over here somewhere, maybe. There it is. Okay, And then let me get Discord up. Nope, not that channel, this one. Okay, there we go. And as always, if you are in the US and would like to own this painting, the starting bid is $75. So really cheap to own an original painting of mine. And let's get started. So the first thing that I want to do is create the rays of light. Now normally I airbrush those, but obviously most of you guys do. Why do I say obviously? Why? That's not necessarily obviously. The fact of the matter is most of you guys are not going to have an airbrush. So I want to show you some options on getting that rays of light look. I'm going to do it in 2 layers. The first is painting wet into wet in the background. The second will be doing a little bit of a glaze on top of that. So we'll be showing you both, 2 different methods to get that look. And I want a larger brush for this, actually. Yeah, I guess you'll work okay. A flat brush kind of works better for those. So what I'm going to do is repaint my background just so that it's wet, and I still have some of my color that I painted earlier. Now this is always going to be easier if you're starting with not the white canvas. Again, I may have to, this looks really dark. Let me see if I can adjust that right now. Nope, that's not what I needed. Camera hub. Remind me later. I am not updating you tonight. That looks closer. It's a little bit too light, but I think it lets you see, so we may have to adjust that again. Excuse me, again, in a bit. I need my tea. Let's see. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and just paint this another layer. I'm going to thin that with a bit more water. I've always thinned my paint with water. I'm never painting straight out of the tube. I don't really need much over here, but may as well paint some in. I don't care if it goes over the fish. Actually, I would rather it go over the fish and the coral a little bit so I don't end up with a halo look. Not that you would have much of one on this because it is already so dark, but there we go. Keep that wet. And I've got my fine mist sprayer. This is a must. If you do not have a fine mist sprayer and you like painting with acrylics, this will make your life so much better. Like so much easier, which, does make lives better. So all I have to do to keep it wet, fine mist. And you cannot just use a regular spray bottle for that because the droplets are too big and it ends up causing the paint to kind of lift up. Okay, now, same brush. I don't even need to clean it. I'm just going to take a little bit of white. And I'm going to create a few little rays of light, a little bit more white. Now, I do not have to reload this with or add more water because there's already water on the canvas and on my brush. Make sure this goes right behind those corals. You can just kind of softly go over that. Again, go over the coral. Don't try to paint around it. We want the light to look like it's going right behind everything. Same thing with the fish. And if you need to soften it a little bit more, you can take a mop brush, which I've lost. Hopefully it's not wet because I used it earlier. It's a little wet, mostly good. Let's play it safe. Let's use you. And I'm just going to make a couple of brush strokes and soften that up. This brush only works if everything is still wet. Bam, we've got rays of lights, airbrush free. So it's important to don't try to do this against the white background. Don't just paint the blue, like let's say you've got a white canvas, this was white to start with, and then you paint the blue and then you paint the white. When you blend it, it does not look that smooth. I promise you it is not gonna come out that good. Paint it a base color first, it doesn't matter what color, whatever your background color for your water is. Paint that first, then let it dry, and then do another coat, same exact color and the white. It's so much more forgiving if you are trying to get that to blend against the white. It gets blotchy. You're going to see every brush stroke. You're going to see every mistake. I've already covered, I'm not fighting the white of the canvas here. So make your life easier, get a base layer on there, and yay. Plus, having that base layer means my white charcoal pencil shows up really well. But then you think, what do you do? The fish is, if I paint orange over that, it's not going to show up. So let me clean these brushes off. So what do you do then? Well, we paint it white first, or like orange mixed with white, whatever. But we get a lot of white, which is opaque, and that's how we're going to cover the blue background. So the first thing I'm going to do is clean this brush so I don't ruin it, because I kind of like it. And have some tea. Now what I just did is much easier on a small scale, like an 8 by 10, 11 by 14. The bigger you get, the harder that is going to be because you're fighting that dry time. But again, if you got that fine mist sprayer, you can keep that wet for hours if you need to keep reworking it. Okay, let's move on to, we're gonna do this mushroom first. My mushroom's not gonna have as much texture as the one in the photo, mostly because I prefer the smoother discosomas like this one. So that's just personal preference, and you know. Let's see, Nancy says, is it worth buying the open acrylics for drying or the drying retardant mediums? No, no. I actually don't know a single artist who paints and it looks how I would want mine to look and uses any of those. I'm not saying you can't do something beautiful with it. I certainly could. But I feel it limits you. That paint, the medium and the paints, like it's gooey and gunky. I don't like it. I don't like the dry time. All I need is water. I can completely control my dry time. If I want to, you know, I'm ready for it to dry, just hair dryer, I'm ready to go. I don't have to worry about it lifting. This works so much better, in my opinion, than any other method. Now, the paint you use will matter too. If your paint is super, I've got to paint that white first to get that brighter reddish color or magenta. But if I'm mixing some red, I'm mixing some deep violet and some white. Let's mix a bit more. But where was I rambling about? Oh, if you're painting with acrylics that are a higher gloss, the techniques I use don't work real well. Some of them do. Some of the techniques will be fine. The wet and wet's fine. But a lot of them are not. So I do not recommend, like, Liquitex, like I'm using Liquitex. I don't like their heavy body and I don't like their soft body, except if I'm using a palette knife, then I want the heavy body, or if I'm painting with, like doing an acrylic pour, then the soft body is better because it has more pigment. But the way that I paint, Liquitex Basics, even though they're cheap, which is an added bonus, especially in this economy, is amazing. Like, I really prefer them to anything. And I've used most other paints, and I just painted over his little mouth, which also happens to be his bum hole. Just ruined coral for you forever. It's both things. Both things come out of the same hole. Anyway, moving on. They're animals. They're not plants. That's, a lot of people think that they're plants. Nope, it's an animal. Things go in, things come out. Anyway, moving on. Ask me what seafoam is. You want to really have things ruined for you. Yeah, the techniques I'm using, and again, you can create beautiful work with heavy body, soft body, goldens, any of those. Those are all quality paints. But my techniques work best with Liquitex Basics. Let's see. While I'm at it, may as well go ahead and get the blue. Let's get a base on this guy, and I can use this. Actually, no, I want more of a purpley blue. I don't want to do the indigo this time. So let me pull out a little bit of, oh no, I do still have, no, I don't. A little bit of blue, and I'm going to put a little bit of magenta or deep violet, whichever I happen to grab first. Deep violet it is. And this is going to make it a little bit more of a purpley color. And white, of course. And I don't care if this is perfect. We're going to glaze over it. I just need a color. Let's just get the general shape. Actually, let's pull you up a little bit higher. I have a bunch of these blue mushrooms. Mine have polka dots, though, in my reef tank. They're so pretty. They're my favorites, which is funny because they're also like one of the cheapest coral, besides, I don't know, maybe green star polyps, which I also love, but those I keep in my nano tanks, not my main tank. But anyway, moving on. They're so, I just love, love, love these guys. The shape of them, they're so pretty. They have like a fantasy look to me. Well, kind of like mushrooms on land. They're not even close to the same type of being, I guess. One's a fungus, one's an animal. But these are actually closely related to anemones. But anyway, so they're not technically coral, but they are still an animal. Moving on. They're so pretty, and they reproduce, like they make a lot of babies, which I love. Okay, we're gonna leave you, paint over his mouth / bum hole. No, let's get a base for, I'm just going to do a base layer on everything. That's a good question. I'm answering a few questions just because I think they're kind of relevant to what I'm currently working on, but all the other questions I will be answering at the end of the live stream. I don't really have to think very hard for what I'm doing at the moment. But anyway, we have a question. Mama Bear Artist said, how do you desaturate color? In this case, an ocean I'm painting is glazing with complementary colors or glaze with sky color better. I would need to see what exactly you're talking about, but in general, one of the things a lot of people do, myself included, I'll just mix my own. That one was lime green, and I'm going to do that. I'm going to do a little bit of blue and some white so that it's more opaque. But one of the things that a lot of people have a tendency to do, especially let's say with the sky, is it ends up being like super blue, way more blue than any sky would look in person. I don't care if these are exact to my photo. I just need them to be kind of round, some of them to be overlapping. That's all I care about right now. But with the color, like right now, what I'm doing is pretty bold. I lightened it with white, but I didn't desaturate it. An easy way to desaturate color is add a little bit of black. So what I usually do, let's say I know I want like a grayish purple. I mix the gray tone to the value I need, so the black and the white, and then I slowly add the purple in until I get the color I want. I find if you start with the purple and you start adding black and white, it takes a lot to desaturate it. So I always start with that black and white first. But there are a lot of different ways, and depending on what scenario you're in, to desaturate. Sometimes using a complementary color, like you mentioned, can be the way, like maybe the very best choice to desaturate. Sometimes maybe adding just a brown tone will give you the look that you know, there's so many options. But usually most things, like the sky's a good example. Most skies are more of a gray. Same people eyes. People with blue, like my eyes are much more gray than they are blue. Very, very little blue is used in my, now some people have way more blue eyes. Mine do lean more gray. But if I wanted to mix my eye color, it's not going to be with blue paint. That's not going to come out looking realistic. And even people that have the more saturated blue eyes, it's not a lot of blue. It's mostly going to be black and white. How much black or white depends on the person, but it's going to be much more that than the actual blue. So that's an easy way to go. But again, it depends on the specific scenario as far as desaturating to get it what you need. Black and white is not always going to be the answer, because let's say you're painting a person, a portrait, you don't usually want to use black. There are cases, but usually you're not using black in the skin tone. Even if it's somebody with very, very dark skin, black's not going to be your go-to color. You're going to create kind of a muddy look. So where I talk about making gray first and then mixing the color in does not always work well. It depends on the exact scenario. So if I saw the photo that you're working from, that will give me a better idea. And in that case, like let's say I'm working on a person, that's going to come down to, like you talked about, complementary colors. So let's say I've got a brownish tone I needed. So I've mixed a combination of, we'll say, green, red, so those are going to desaturate themselves, maybe a little bit of yellow and some white. And I might pull more purple into that. I might pull other colors to darken it up and kind of muddy those up, but you're letting those complementary colors, they neutralize each other. So the red and the green are what's going to neutralize themselves and give you a brown tone, which is normally the tone I go with portraits. Sometimes purple and yellow works really well. Again, depends on the lighting, depends on tons of stuff. So those are just kind of some tips there. Okay. Let's dry, oh wait, I'm gonna get a basic layer on the clownfish. May as well while I'm at it. I'm kind of doing this a little bit different. Usually, I'm gonna do a light yellow on the clownfish, and I'll explain why in a second here. Usually, I do one element at a time, but just because of like having to use the hairdryer and dry it, I think this will make it go a little bit faster. I recommend if you are painting something normally, like you're not following one of these lessons, paint the coral, then this coral, then like one little area. Don't jump around the way I'm doing everything. And I'm going to slow down and do one section at a time in a moment here. But let's start by painting. I'm just going to go with a light yellow. You just go with white too. It doesn't really matter. Point is, I need something that's going to be opaque. Got to cover that blue. And it's easier to just fill in like I'm doing this than to have tried to paint, or like either paint the subject and paint around it. I've seen people do that. They'll draw everything out in pencil and try to paint the background around the subject. Water especially, if you're doing a landscape, it's not going to be a big deal. If you've got brush strokes and such, you can see, like, you can hide them. But when you're doing something with the water and you want that smooth background water look, you've got to paint the water first, and you can't be painting around the subject because you are never going to get, even with the fine mist sprayer, you're going to have it be blotchy. It's not going to be cute. Paint the background like this, especially with water stuff. Yeah, and if you're doing like a deer in the woods, okay, you can paint around that. That's not a big deal because you're intentionally going to want blotchy. But when we want that smooth water look, we want to paint the water first and layer from there. And I don't care if this is perfectly smooth. Okay, I'm going to wipe the paint off that brush, rinse it out. And I'm just going to do white. It just helps me map out what goes where. We will not be leaving that white. If you're wondering why, I will explain that when we get to it. Okay, and I need to switch to a smaller brush for some of these little areas. And then we can dry it. That is not the brush I need. Oh man, where is the brush I need? Any of you over here want to cooperate? No? Okay. I grabbed the brush. Oh, because I pulled everything out. I moved. You know what? You'll work. Whatever. Not the brush I want, but you can do the job. What am I doing? A little too much water there. And he's got his little upper fin. Okay. There we go. Now we need to dry this. And have some tea. And I didn't mention, this is a Fredrix, hold on, I have the label over here. This is the Pro Series Dixie Cotton Canvas. This is actually not my go-to canvas for canvas board. Fredrix is. I normally go with watercolor, but I ran out. I have these. This is a nice heavy duty, like this is not gonna warp. It is a nice canvas, but has too much tooth. So what I do is take a couple of coats of Liquitex gesso. You wanna use a quality gesso, do not cheap out on this, because if you're using a cheapy gesso, like, I don't know, something you found at Walmart that isn't Liquitex, I think they actually might carry some Liquitex, but if you use that, it will sometimes not adhere long-term and you have issues later on down the road. So my Liquitex gesso links might be in the video description. I don't know. But that is amazing. I put it on with a foamy sponge brush. I think I have one over here. Do I still have it here? Here we go. I love these brushes for applying gesso. I use these for applying varnish too, much to Joseph's disgust. Art of Joseph Fincham hates using sponges. We're so opposite on that. Goes to show there is not one way to do things. But anyway, this canvas, I put 2 coats of this. I should have put 3. I ran out of, I forgot. I didn't run out, I forgot. And then I sanded it with about a 220, 320 right around there, grit sandpaper. So I've got this smooth finish. Now it's closer to your watercolor canvas board, and that is going to create the really smooth blending that I've got here and fine detail that I will be getting. So just for transparency, I am sponsored by Fredrix. They were already the only canvas I used, so no difference for me there. I need to contact them because I am almost out of canvases. Let's see. And these do not, oh, we have a super chat for the boys. And that's a yes, they would like their super chat. Thank you so much, Nancy. Oh, where did I put their treats? They're over here. Scooch them. Okay. I want big ones. This is a big one. There we go. Thank you again, Nancy. She said those babies need a treat. They agree. Go lay down. Oh, do not stand over my mats. I don't want you to drool in that. Down, cow, down. Wait, go lay down. Good boy. You too, Gibson. Okay, so this is dry enough now. Let's go ahead and start on this guy. So this guy's gonna have more red. Let's get some of that out. I've got my Quidonkadonk magenta. If you've been around for very long, you know that is a word I can't say. Not even gonna try. So I call it Quidonkadonk because that is what it looks like when I glance at it. And I've got, I think this is primary red. Oh, cadmium red deep hue. Either will work. It doesn't really matter. And what happened to those brushes that those I'm definitely going to want. The ones I looked for, I found them, but then I missed something else and I lost those in the process. Yeah, that is how my night is going. I really did lose them. Yeah, I'm gonna need to find those. Okay, it should be over here. I think it's over here somewhere. And did it roll off? No? Well, you're a decent brush, but you're not what I'm looking for. I have these brushes from Artify that I am obsessed with for detail. They've got the white handle, and I had two of them. I grabbed one that I was missing earlier, and I do not. Is somebody commenting like, oh, we saw you put them here? No, nothing. Oh, there's one. I did put them in this thing. Okay. Whew, here we go. So first thing I'm going to do is, I'm not even going to worry about, actually, I'm going to do a little bit of detail. Let's get some texture in there first, and we'll glaze over it. So we've got a few different ways. I've got some magenta. I've got some red. I'm going to throw some black in there to darken that up. I could even pull my dark indigo from my background, make it really dark. Now, I want this to be darker than I want the end result to be. And I'm just going to build a little bit of texture. Let's see, here's his mouth / bum hole. Oh, somebody asked, yeah, they wanted to know what the sea foam is. Yeah, that's fish poop. Sometimes people poop depending on, how well the environment in that area is being taken care of. I was working at a fish store or a pet store back in the 90s, and I was like, not a lot of people were keeping saltwater. Like, it was just getting bigger at the time, and we had a marine biologist who worked at that pet store. It was such a good store. But anyway, oops, that's not the brush I need. I'm just starting to shade. So while I tell this story, let's explain what I'm doing. I'm looking at my reference photo. Again, that reference photo you can download. Link is in the video description. And I'm just looking at where my lights and darks are. And I'm applying it with one brush. I'm taking a separate, slightly damp brush and smudging that out just a little bit. And look how that's blotchy. Good, I need blotchy. Blotchy is good. Anyway, yeah, I remember the marine biologist told me that because I used to love, I'm from originally Southern California, so I used to go to the beach all the time, back before they were covered in needles. But, like, you could actually walk barefoot on them. But I don't think you can do that at Huntington and Newport anymore. But anyway, I was quite upset. I mean, you think it's like this pretty, it was so nice to walk in sea foam. Yeah, no, fish poop. Just ruin the vision of beauty. I mean, it's still pretty, but my gosh. Now, you need to trust your reference photo. I don't need any of these folds or anything to be exact, but I do want to go for semi-close. And you want to trust that those weird shapes will come together in the end, because they are weird shapes at this point. And these guys change shape so much anyway, so it's not like if it's not perfect, people are going to be like, oh my gosh, you did that wrong. No one's going to notice. I mean, you guys will notice because you can go download that reference photo for free. And the line art if you need it. I don't actually recommend using line drawings though, no matter whose tutorial you follow. The problem is, okay, first off, it's going to be less accurate. The more I trace it, and then you trace it, and somebody else, the more times it's traced, the less accurate it gets. But you're also not really learning to draw that way. It improves your drawing skills when you trace the photo. Now, in the beginning, I understand when you're not really sure which lines you need, those line drawings can help. One of you guys actually proved that to me. I, for years, refused to provide it because I don't think it helps most people. One of you guys over on Patreon proved to me it absolutely does. So I went back on what I've always said I would not do. And, sometimes I'm wrong. And I now provide line art for my artwork or for my lessons. But if you need that, it is available for you too. Okay, so we've got this messy shading. We're just starting to get it. I don't care about the color at all yet. We're going to glaze that. I need some mushrooms down here. So let's throw those in. I don't need them to be as light colored as the other one, but I do want to get some down there. Whoops, that's way too much water. Can you see that it's starting to run? I don't know if that camera really picks it up, but that is way too. That's how you know you have too much water. Let's just get the hint of some mushrooms down here. Loki is screaming. I don't think he's happy that I'm not in visiting him. I'm normally this time of night, every other night of the week, I'm in playing with him. Wednesdays, he's stuck with Matt by himself. If you're new, Loki's one of our Indian ringnecks. Technically my husband's bird, but he's kind of in love with me. Like obsession level, I might need to get a restraining order. In love with me. Okay, let's dry that. Okay, I'm going to build a little bit of texture on this, and we've got a few ways we can do it, but we are on a time crunch, so let's do, oh, that's not the color I want. I want a dark. Let's just do a kind of spongy, stiff brush. Same purpley color, don't really care, and this is how I'm building that texture. I'm just going to kind of dot that in there. Oh, this is way too blue, but it doesn't really matter because the way I'm going to do this, I just want a bit of texture. Okay, rinsing that. You're a hot mess right now. I promise that we're going somewhere with this. So you should stick around just to see if I pull it off. I will, I promise. Time might be the issue here. Okay, we are going to start glazing now. So hopefully that's dry all the way. If it's not dry all the way, you should let yours dry longer, is where I'm going with that. Okay, so when you glaze, you are not using white. No white. White is opaque. That's not a glaze. You're making fog. I want to tint the color. So we're going to use some magenta, and I'm going to use some of my red. And some water. But I think I have too much water on that brush. And now I can paint right over everything that I did. I'm going to be pulling highlights over this, so I'm not worried about those. And I can still see the shading, but see how soft the shading looks now? That's why I needed that to be over extreme on my shadows, because as soon as I start glazing, you kind of lose that. It softens it up, which is a good thing. You just need to know what's going to happen. And that's a combination of my deep cadmium red or cadmium red deep hue and magenta, quadonkadonk magenta. We're gonna throw some of those down here, some kind of fade to right in there. Okay, that is a little bit more magenta. You guys are, that's kind of dull for you. I might have to adjust. Oh no, I'm not gonna bother adjusting it. I forgot reds never show up good on these cameras. They always come out weird. Mine's a really bright, like vivid, let's see, will it show up here? Can you kind of, woo, there. Yeah, you can kind of see there. It's like a magenta. Okay, we're gonna start getting some detail and highlights on this. And I'm gonna be doing that with basically the same color I just did, but with white now. Now white is going to give me more of a pink tone, so, you know, be aware of that. But I also need it to be really light, so pink works. Now pink is not always how I highlight when I'm doing red. Oftentimes it's with orange and yellow. Okay, we're gonna start getting details, and this is that Artify brush I like so much. It's great for getting details, and I'm kind of doing little squiggles, little circles. I want the outer edge here. Let's see. You're going to come this way, and I've got little texture, little squiggles. see this outer edge. And again, it does not, oops, a little too much water there. Doesn't matter if it's exact to the reference photo. And every time I say that there's too much water, all I do is take a paper towel and go like that and let it soak the water out of the brush. So I don't necessarily always have to reload. Sometimes it's just, let's see, you were a curve and you came down here. You came out here. You did something. You came this way. These guys kind of fold. I think of them almost like fabric, like how it's technically a big circle, but they'll fold depending on how the flow of the water is, or if another coral is pushing against them, or if they're angry because, I don't know, they don't like noon. But any reason at all, they will change shape. So that's why you're getting all of these little folds. I'll come through and have to highlight a lot more too, but we're just going to start getting that texture. Doing little blotches, little circles. There's this mouth / thumb hole. Stop saying that. Grow up, Lisa. I mean, that's what it is. And for some reason, I think that's funny because I'm a 12-year-old boy. Change my mind. You're going to be the top of that one. Little circles and squiggles and just building texture. Now, if I'm going with something like super, super, super realistic, I'm going to take my time, and you've got time on. I mean, this is big enough. You could put that level of detail if you wanted to, but I'm going to take my time and slowly do every highlight and shadow. Like, there's a lot more time involved in that. So this is what I was talking about earlier, much more stylized. It's fun because it's fast. It's still beautiful. I love the look of it, but it isn't, I mean, you look at it, you can tell it's a painting, which oddly enough, so we have a tendency, if you like realism, we're trying to make everything as realistic as possible. I had a client, it was a veterinarian who owned an animal hospital. You didn't see that coming, did you? But she owned this animal hospital, and she wanted some portraits of dogs for the wall. She specifically requested mediums that did not look too realistic. She didn't like the ones, she wanted it to look like a painting or drawing. She did not want it to look like a photograph. So we have a tendency, we're always trying to make things more and more realistic. That's not always what people want. I'll be glazing again. Okay, let's come through with some white highlights. I'm just using white now. That's gonna have too much water on it. Dab that on the paper towel. Let's see, we want some around that edge. And I'm just hitting those brightest areas, kind of dabbing circles again with building that texture, making them bumpy. I don't like how that just barely touches the edge, so I'm making that go right off the canvas. We'll turn it into rock or something. Something needs to go there. What I'm doing, I'm kind of creating the illusion of detail without actually painting in all that detail. Just making this kind of bumpy mess. And these ones I'm going to leave as being more discosomas down there. I don't want them having that much. Let's go ahead and dry this. I'm going to get some orange paint. Oh, hell. And I've just dumped my paint in the paint. That's not what you're supposed to do with paint. That is not how you paint. Okay. Now, orange with Liquitex, I don't usually like, except for glazing. For tinting color, it's wonderful. It is just way too, it's almost gooey. It's very translucent. I'm going to put just a little bit in here, and now I'm going to go back and glaze some more of the red and magenta over this. So we're building, but still softening that texture. Need a little bit more water here. And this softens that, like how harsh that was. So I don't want it to be as bumpy. And now I'm going to go ahead and start pulling some highlights in over that. Just let it be blotchy. This is just a layering process until you get it to look how you want. But see how soft it is now compared to what it was? So before it looked, well, sloppy. I can't think of a better way than that. Now we start getting, we've got texture, but not so harsh. And then I'll come back through with shadows and clean up my edges, and this guy will be about done. I need some brighter highlights. I wish this color, I need to stop painting red is what I need to do, because apparently these cameras cannot pick that up. I can use this while it's still wet. I've got some magenta and purple and blue, and we're just making a darker shadow. And I want this to be really harsh. If you look at that reference photo, again, link is in the video description, this is really dark in those darker areas. And see, I'm kind of dabbing the brush to create that look of texture. I need more water though, because that's getting too dry. I am not going for the wet, let's wet that a little bit, for that dry brushy look there. We've got his mouth / bum hole. Stop saying that. Clean up edges. I'm going to have to let him dry before I do details. I'm actually going to save a lot of those details to see how much time I have at the end, because I don't know if I'll put too much more. I need a light blue. Oops, that's too, there we go. I'm not even going to say what that is. We've already established. Oh, I like that color. I'm going to actually pull. You're going to be fancy. We're going to pull some of that detail for your edge. So one of the fun things with coral is that they come in every imaginable color. If you want to, like, oh, I've decided I want you to have a like bluish outline, go for it, because there's probably one that looks like that. Actually, I don't like you there. We're just going to leave you smooth. We're not even going to have that fold there. You can have the fold. That looks nice. There we go. Okay, we're going to leave that coral alone for right now. I don't like how much is there. I'm going to pull, I want more of the green. Let's overlap that a bit. I just changed my mind a bit. I'm going to pull you in more. That I like better. Okay. We're going to overlap in that direction. And now let's see, which one do I want to do next? I guess we can go, actually no, you take too much time. Let's just do you really quick, because you're quick and easy compared to the other. So we've got my darker blue. This is going to be the same thing where I end up doing a lot of glazing, although I do want this to stay a little bit more wet, so I'm going to mist that with the fine mist sprayer. And we're going to just start coming through. Oops, that's too much water. It's a little bit runny there. Now, this guy has these lines in them, and I'm not going to paint all those in there, but I do want to make sure that where they are is in the right location. Going the right direction. Words are hard. We're just going to soften that out. This layer, I'm really just more figuring out where the lights and darks go. You kind of fold up. You guys know what goes in there. I'm not saying it again. I have matured past 12. I have not. I have not matured past 12. That is a dirty lie. Okay. So we're starting to get form in this guy. Like this guy, he has no form. I've got one like that, a lava something. I forget which type, what exactly he's called, and they don't have form. When they flatten out like that, there's no form. I like him. He has form. He's been to the gym. You have not. You didn't even take your dogs on a walk today. I feel like I'm outing myself unintentionally. Okay, we need a lighter version of that white or the purple. So same color I used before, and I'm just going to start pulling in. See how I'm pulling that the same direction as the way the lines move. Even though I'm not going to paint all those lines, this gives me the look of some of them. The top of his mouth slash. I didn't say it. I'm being mature. And then here. I'm just going to take a separate brush and smudge that a little bit. I'm not painting all the little dots that this guy has. They don't all have dots. He doesn't need, those ones aren't dots, those are bumps, and those would take forever. We don't have time for that in a live stream. Got a shadow here. Okay. Now I'm going to dry that so that I can go over it without lifting or smudging what I just did. This looks like it's just black blobs. It is not in person, but I do want to tone that down a little bit. So while I'm looking at it, just take a little magenta and go right on over that. Which means I'm going to need more highlights, but that's still a little bit harsher than what I wanted. So there we go. That is like bright purpley magenta. The color is just not right on this camera. I hate that. Okay, let's get back to lightening this up. So again, light purple. I'm going to create the hint of some of these lines. I'm just holding the brush sideways so that it works like a kind of like a liner brush. With me being able to be super lazy and having to switch to a liner brush. The more you paint, the more you'll get to where you can get a lot of different brushes to get the same effect that you can with a lot of other brushes. And then we're going to pull that, make that catch a lot more light down here, soften it a bit. I'm just smudging the inside, leave that outside harsh. Pull a little bit on those edges. Okay, let that dry. We're going to move on to the palithoas. So fun fact, these guys will kill you. or they can. People have died. They are extremely toxic. Certain pallies are, not all of them, but a lot of the greens and browns are. So, you know, don't lick them. Don't eat them. Don't poke them. The one guy, oh God, some of the stories of the things. Some people have had things happen with palithoas that are not like, it could happen to any of us sort of thing. And some of them you're just like, oh my God, how do you even feed yourself? Like one guy decided he didn't want those corals anymore. So he put the rock he boiled it. He was going to boil them off the rock because they're very, very hardy. I'm just doing a little bit of shading with that indigo, same background color I used. We'll just get a little shadows on some of these. But he decided to boil them. So he made an aerosol, essentially, of poison for his house. I don't remember if his animals lived. I know all the people in that specific house. I think they did. I don't remember if he did. I think everyone made it. But like everyone in the house, upstairs, down, everyone got sick. Not all of the stories, but most of the time when somebody like got super sick from them, they were doing something incredibly stupid. But like people have been fragging the coral, like cutting it into multiple pieces, so multiple people can have, like, this is what you do with coral, you cut them into pieces like you would think fragging propagating a plant. So they have done that and got squirted in the eye by the juice of this stuff. Like they squirted and they went blind. It's really, like, even if you're just moving the coral from one place to another, if you smush it and make it mad, like you didn't kill it or anything, but you made it mad, that can make it squish something out. And if it gets in an open wound, that can make you insanely sick. If it gets, these things are crazy. I don't have this kind. I have, they were called Sun Eater, I think, but I think it was renamed because they were really if any of you who have reefs know what I'm talking about, they used to be called Pandoras, and I'm pretty sure it's the same thing. Those ones might be iffy. They can kind of take over a bit, but that's the only one in my tank that have to be, like, that I kind of watch. I mean, any of them you want to be respectful of, but yeah, they're kind of crazy. So we're just creating some little shadows in the green. And this is the exact same blue that I used on my background. So it's a little bit lighter. I've got more blue in it, but it's the blue and Mars black. And that brown outer edge, we'll be doing that after. Again, if you want to bid on this, the link is in the video description. The starting bid is $75. I know that seems scary right now because you don't know if I'm going to be doing a good job here. I promise it will be good. The bidding ends at 10 p.m. Central Time. See, I'm getting mostly the upper edge and kind of curving that around and letting the bottom stay a brighter green. And this is going to be another one that I was talking about where I do it more stylized. Just I painted so many of these, and this is how I like them to look. So I'm not even really looking that much at the photo at this point. Like every once in a while I glance at it, but not a lot. Which is not normally what I recommend doing. If you've never painted them before, look at your reference photo a little bit more. My outer edge doesn't need to be super clean because I've got to go over that with the little frilly details after. Okay, nope, missed you. Let's rinse that brush out. You know, the more I look at this, I don't even like how it looks on the reference photo that much. I like the smooth discosoma. I said I was going to do that in the beginning, and I should have just trusted myself. I'm changing him to a smooth discosoma. I don't like him. We're repainting him, and I better move quick because time. I'm going to do it right now. You are going to turn into a normal smooth discosoma because you're my favorite anyway. And we're just going to get some of the edges. Like, I just feel like that texture, I'm not I don't know. And I might be being picky because I just like the smooth ones better. If you like yours bumpy, go for bumpy. I am changing your shape. Ooh, that needs more water. You can do that with Find This sprayer. We don't want to be dry brushing that. I don't know, it looks like crap. There we go, nice and smooth. I'm gonna move your mouth. That's weird. It's one of the things I love with acrylics. You can just randomly change your mind and it's fine. Same color as my background, so that purpley color, or I'm sorry, bluish black. And now I'm going to take a clean, slightly damp brush and just kind of soften that a bit. I already like it better. I mean, I have to glaze over it again, but I just was not. After I painted him, I'm like, I like that kind. I'm being picky, I know, and I'm wasting time because it's a live stream and I've only got so much time to get this painted, but whatever. Worth it. Let's get some highlights on you. Oop, too much water. Dab it on the paper towel. So these guys, when they start reproducing, they grow in like clumps. So you have, 50 of the type of mushrooms stuck together. So that's fun to paint because, I mean, that's kind of what I've created the hint of down here. You can easily use a liner brush for this, or a smaller brush. You can easily group a whole bunch of these together and it looks so good. More water, that is way too dry. There we go, just gonna get some of those lines. You're not gonna hardly see those once I glaze over that. But I was just not liking that other one. I knew I was gonna grow, like already, I like the layout now better. The color looks muddy as heck, but let's fix that. Little glaze will touch that right up and soften those lines up. So I liked the color well enough. I just didn't like the shape and the bumpy. I like the smoother one a lot better. So I'm just gonna now glaze. So a lot of water, a little bit of magenta and red. Much better. I'll come back and do highlights again later too. I don't need it perfectly dry, just dry enough I don't run my hand through it. Okay, so on to these pallies. We're going to mix a brownish color, so I'm going to use some red oxide and black. That gives me the brown. I'm gonna pull a little bit of deep violet in there so I have more of a purpley color. And we're just gonna dot the edges. Oop, I need some white, those aren't showing up enough. I'll come through and I can do shading if I need to, but we're just gonna polka dot all the way around those edges. And it's gonna look flat because I'm not mixing different colors in there just yet. I will do that later. Now, technically, these guys have little, oops, that's a hot mess. I almost licked my finger on camera. I should fix that. There we go. Just take a clean brush with a little bit of water to fix that. But they have little teeny, like they're not dots. It's just that when it's this small, it looks better if you just do them as dots. And then they've also got a little mouth, so I'm just gonna do that with the brown, which you'll never guess what it doubles as. Coral are weird. I'll be answering any questions at the end of the live stream. And if you have suggestions for types of edited content you would like me to see, like me to make, whether it be for Patreon, if you want a specific Patreon lesson, let me know, or just a general video for YouTube. Also, if you could do me a huge, 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 huge favor, share this video all over the place. Any art group you're in, anything like that, because YouTube's algorithm sucks, and it is very hard for anybody to find videos. I would like more people to be able to follow along to these lessons. Wait, stop. It's a little too globby there. So one of the things that is so cool with painting coral, and it doesn't have to be coral, it could be like wildflowers, things that are very, very busy and have just tons of detail. Like, this is not hard detail. This is just time consuming. But the end work looks so good because the busier something is, the less you notice the little details. When something is really simple, it's a lot harder to make it look good. Sure, it's faster, but like every single thing that is wrong shows up. When something is very busy, it hides those mistakes. Oops, a little bit too much. So when you see something that's really busy, don't look at it and think it's too hard. It's actually easier. It's just going to take more time. But technique-wise, difficulty-wise, it is not harder at all. It's quite the opposite. And that's like anything, tons of wildflowers, tons of grass. If you want to sit there and paint in all the little blades of grass, all the leaves in something, if you're willing to put in the time, it's so much easier technique-wise. Okay, let's get a little bit of shading in there now. I'm going to pull some black and some of my red iron oxide. So it's really dark. I'm going to get some darker dots kind of in between some of these. I'm just kind of cleaning up too some of the shapes there. Look how it looks like I've got all this crazy shading and detail. I don't. You guys just saw what I did. This is so fast. It is so easy. Give it on their mouths / opposite of mouths. Okay. Now that has so much contrast, I definitely want to come back and do a little bit more on these guys before I move on to the clownfish. For Nick said, it almost looks like a Venus flytrap. It really does. You are not wrong about that. Okay, let's do a little bit of glazing. So I'm going to take that same dark color that we have in the background and let's get those deeper shadows. I'm going to take a clean dry brush, or slightly damp brush, I'm sorry, and just smudge that in there. So the reason that I use the color that is in the background is it just makes sense for the shadows. It's already on the painting. So I don't want to like grab a different blue. If I can keep it as similar to that as possible, that is going to make the most amount of sense. Oh, and we have from, I need to put this brush down. Actually, let's rinse that brush. From JL said, I love this piece, so beautiful, with a super chat for the boys. They are happy. Thank you so much, Dale. What did I do with your treats? I thought I brought them with me. Apparently not. I am missing everything tonight. This is because my studio is a big fat mess. Thank you so much. And I just knocked all my paint down. Whatever. Okay. Back to work. So now we are working on just like hyping up that contrast here before we get onto the clownfish. I am so glad I changed that. I was just not happy with him. Gibson, down. Oh, we got to stretch into it. And again, clean, slightly damp brush. If this brush is too wet, it works like an eraser, which I'm right on the border of. But if it's too dry, it doesn't do anything. I'm really liking this because it's more of a phthalo blue. Well, it is phthalo blue. The other one is too. But it doesn't have the purple of the mushroom, so it just looks so pretty for the shadow here. I should be careful here because that was still a little bit wet. It'd be very easy to blotch up what I had. Okay, that one's good. I can use the same color for you and then just glaze over. Actually, let's make my life easier and mix magenta into it. So it's not that. And let's get some deep violet, a little bit of blue. I feel like I'm going too dark and muddy there. Okay, oh, that has a lot of paint on it. I'm pretty much copying where the shadow is on the other Discosoma. I may be pronouncing that wrong, by the way, but whatever. That's what I've always called, or how I've always said it. So there's a possibility if you're sounding smart to somebody and you're like, I'm painting a Discosoma mushroom, maybe like a what? Okay, now let's get the highlights on that guy. So we'll grab the magenta and red and some pink, or some white to make pink. Just smudge that down a bit. And you can leave yours bumpy if you want. I just, again, personal preference there. Looks like a hibiscus. I want more white. The paint is starting to dry a little bit. Just missed that. And now this will blend much smoother. Get some of those streaky lines back in. Okay. Oops. I may glaze around. Well, I'm going to see. I may glaze it, but again, to brighten up the color. But I want to see once we get the clownfish in how much I really want to glaze. So with the clownfish, I'm going to start by, let's see, we've got the yellow. Let's make a brighter yellow, especially around the face. I like the face to be a brighter color in there, so we'll start that. Let's dry that. There's going to be a lot of drying. So much with acrylics is just getting an understanding of the layering process. Oils, I would say, are largely the same. Okay. Let's pull the orange. I'm going to mix some red in with that because that is really going to be not super saturated. There it is. Separate brush, just kind of smudging that out. Sorry, itchy eyeball. Now these guys have some black shading on them, but I don't want to jump straight to the black because, and I'm probably not going to put quite as much as this guy has. They don't all have that much black as what he has on his upper body. They have some often, especially as they get older, but I don't want to jump straight to black. I'm going to use more purples and violets because it blends and looks nicer with oranges and yellows than black does. That's not to say I won't use any black, but I'm not jumping straight to that. What I'm working on right now is getting just a vivid, vivid orange. I'm dropping my brush is what I'm working on. So I'm going to do this in a few layers. Let's start getting some of our shadows in there. A little bit with the deep violet. We've got a shadow that goes right in here and out there. And what I'll do is glaze orange right over all of this where his shadow is. Just slightly smudge that out a bit. Pull a little bit of that into the fin, but I don't want too much because I want light there. Same thing here, I want there to be light. And around the mouth. Oh, I never painted this part of the eye. Let's paint that the lighter yellow again and then let that dry. I missed that earlier. Now he looks super blotchy and messy. He won't when I'm done. I mean, a little bit's fine. That actually is good, but not this much. This is really harsh. But like I said before, the more layers we do, the more we soften that. So let's just take our orange, go right over that. That needs more water. That is way too much. Now we start getting that really vivid. But if I did this orange straight over the white, it doesn't come out looking that orange. Like it really needs the yellows. And that's just a Liquitex thing. That is not all orange. Or Liquitex Basics. I'm not sure with the other ones. I don't know if I've used their orange very often in the soft body or heavy body. I mean, I know I have. I just don't. It's been so long I don't remember what those results were. Okay, I'm going to take some yellow and white and pull out some highlights just where I'm going to put a highlight here in the center of the head because that's where I often have them. Like I said, I'm not going to go as dark as what this guy has. Or what the reference photo, I mean. So I'm just looking at where the general highlights are. Okay, now we're going to start refining it. We'll go ahead and dry that. Okay, let's start with his little eye. So we've got the black, actually you can just use the dark indigo again. We've got that center. This brush is not wet enough. And while I'm at it, I may as well do the black on the fins, which I'm going to do the dark indigo first, and then I can come through with the black after. So it gives me a little bit more depth than just black everywhere. He's got a circle, a ring around that eye, and that has a little bit of shading. I messed that up right there. There we go. Just push that back. And then this one is much more subtle, the line, the outer ring. That would actually look better if I did that outer one with purple. I'll probably switch in a moment here. Actually, let's just start pulling some deep violet into that. We are going to have black right around the white, which I've got to repaint. That's not a perfectly, see how I'm keeping my brush a little bit squiggly? It's not a perfectly smooth line. A little bit more smooth up here, but it starts getting kind of wavy. Not wavy, that's not the right, just bumpy. That's another area I'll come back through and add more black. It looks black on the video, so I guess it's kind of pointless for me to be mentioning that. You can't really see the difference, but it will add more depth in person. Okay, and I'm going to repaint the white, but I am going to paint it a light version of the blue with a little bit of purple in it. So the white is never going to be really white. It's typically going to be largely whatever your background color is, and then we'll fade to a white highlight up here. Let's keep that wet so that it'll blend nicely. Where was my, there's my blending brush. I'm just going to make a couple of brush strokes just right in there to soften that, and then here we'll fade up. I'm going to rinse that brush and fade into white. That is way more contrasty than what it's showing on the video. Unfortunately, the camera's not really picking that up well. And just soften that transition right here. If it started to dry, you can use that fine mist sprayer. Okay. Now I'm going to switch over to my deep violet. We're going to use this for shading around the eye. I'll have to pull some more highlights in there too. We'll use that around the mouth. Fun fact about clownfish, they're usually really aggressive. Mine are pretty docile. Mine don't cause many problems. I think because mine are so heavily inbred, being that they're your designer clownfish, they're weirdly docile. They only occasionally get into fights with my Tang because he starts it and he won't leave them alone. But they're, most clownfish, like, you have to wear gloves to put your hands in the tank because they are like really aggressive. It's kind of funny fun fact. Their mouths are just their mouths though, so you know, they've got that going for them. I'm going to use that purple right over the line, right in between the black and the orange, because that always just looks better with these guys. This needs more orange. Let's just put that over it now. And I'm going to pull some highlights. And I'll glaze over these again. I don't have to leave them this bright, but I do need to start forming some shape in this guy. So highlight his lips a little. So initially I had some of the highlights, but we just start refining them. Now we're really getting that shape in there. We've got a highlight coming through here. And don't worry that this is more peach and white, like it's not as orangey. We'll go back over it with the orange again. This is, again, I keep saying again, it is a layering process, like a lot. Mine's going to be different because I want him to have a highlight up here. Mine's not going to have the black on top. And we've got the little gill fins here and a jagged there. We've got a highlight in this area. And then we've got a lot of highlights. Let's see, this comes up and comes around and down. Same thing, we're going to put some lines over here. Okay, now these guys have kind of a translucent fin, or the translucent end on the edge of the fins, so I'm just going to lightly go over that with the white, just going to give the hint of the clear part of the fin. It's way more clear in the reference photo on this, like basically white, because I photoshopped it and didn't do a good job on purpose. Like I just blocked it in the background on the Photoshop one was light enough that that would be lighter than what mine should be. Okay, now you can see he's kind of lost his bold color. So what I'll do, we're going to dry this, and I'm going to glaze yellow over it, and then orange again. And then we'll clean up the black. Okay, so we'll start with the yellow. And that can go over the orange as well. Just put that over everything. Now we're going to pull, I need my shadows to be a little bit darker now though. Well, that's still wet. I don't need to dry that. Let's go ahead and what do I want to apply it with? I guess you'll work. I'm going to pull some magenta and I'm going to mix that with the orange. Let's darken that up. Get some deep violet in there. Separate clean brush, slightly damp, not too damp or you will erase everything. We're just going to smudge that shadow. Just softening the edges. So here's one of the things when you blend with acrylics, a lot of people you'll let's say we'll do here. So I put a shadow and they'll start blending here. No, leave the center alone. Don't even touch the center. Pull the outer edges where you need it to be. Soften those. Leave the center alone. Don't blend the inside. You end up pushing the paint where you don't really want it and make a hot mess. Just really the edges. inside that, I'm going to pull a little bit of my indigo blue and darken that up. But same thing, I just kind of want to soften the edges. Don't overdo that. Leave the center alone, soften the edges. That gives me that darker color. And if the inside is still wet and it's a little blotchy, you can just slightly go over that with mop brush, but that only really works if the inside and outside edges are wet. Okay, let's dry that. Actually, I don't even need to dry that. I do need to come back through though with my black. I may as well do that now. This brush is a little too soft. We'll switch to you. That really bold dark black there. Let's see. I'm going to make the orange a little bit more orangey. We'll dry that. Oh, I'm actually missing his white line here, which is really the blue. That showed a little bit there, and I'm going to put a little bit on that part. Now you can sit and fuss over whatever you want, lighten things, darken things, whatever. That needs to be more dry. What am I doing? But what I'm going to do, I want it a little bit more orange, and then I want to show you how we can create a little bit more texture and depth in the water. So the orange, I'm going to mix a little bit of yellow with it. We're just going to softly go over some of this, and it just makes it stand out a bit more. It's subtle. Need a little bit more. Don't want that subtle. There we go. And that's going to soften that transition between my lights and my darks. Is chat working? Usually there's more comments. I don't know if like chat is, Joseph said he lagged. I don't know if that's mine. I see the video still working. Okay, let's do a few little highlights. So I'm going to do some dots right around his fin so it looks like the light is catching. Do not do a bunch of dots inside the fish. You'll look like he has ichor velvet, which no one's going to want. Just some highlights. I want to smudge that out a bit. Too blocky. Oops, there we go. Lots of lagging, yeah. I apologize because I'm not seeing if there's questions. I'm not seeing them. See, these little highlights, these little last details make a big difference. Get the light kind of catching his side here. Now, I'm going to come through, actually, let's soften that a little bit, with an aqua. No one's surprised. Oh, you guys, okay, your chat's working. Okay, now one of the things that I think, okay, two last things we need to do on this. One of the things that I like to do on mine is add aqua. You guys, if you've been here for very many videos, you know me and my love of aqua. So where is it? I think it's one I knocked over earlier. I thought I grabbed it. Maybe I didn't. I have aqua, but it's kind of dry. That's been there a long time. Okay, now I'm going to take a brush and that aqua. We are just going to outline a few areas. And I just love how it looks, and it's going to help pull everything together, which is helpful if you do what I did and you've mixed multiple reference photos. And I'm not just outlining everything. I'm just hitting a few spots here and there. And I find this really pulls it together. Get a little bit of a highlight on where that eye would be. I'm also going to do this on parts of the coral. So this gives me a nice little highlight. It again, much more stylized. This is not how it would realistically look. You wouldn't have these outer kind of glows with the aqua, but it will pull things together. On this one, I'm going to use dots of the aqua, so I keep with the texture. If you don't have the green, like in that tube, if you wanted to do an aqua, you can mix it by mixing your green, your blue, and white. I usually use phthalo blue and phthalo green, but you'll get something pretty close with any green and blue mixed. I don't need all of them. I just want to get a few of these. Okay. Now the very last thing I'm going to do is just creating a little bit more atmosphere into the painting. Oh, the color looks much more accurate on this guy now. I was going to glaze over it, but now that the clownfish is in, I like that darker kind of muted color, so we're going to leave it. So to create a little bit more of the rays of light, I'm not just going to go over the rays of light that are there. I'm going to put additional ones, but these ones are going to overlap over the fish and the coral a bit. Let's move my phone out of the way so I don't end up painting all over it. Okay. Because I'm about to splatter paint all over the place. I've got a nice cardboard behind me, so we are good. Okay, so we've got a couple. I need to make sure that's all the way dry. And drink more tea. So I am going to, you can do this a couple of ways. One, if you want it to be more opaque, you can use your titanium white. If you want it more translucent, you can use transparent mixing white to get this look. Let's see with the transparent mixing white first, because I would rather it be more subtle since I'm going to spray paint the way that I am. I need to clean up my palette a little bit. So let's grab, do I have one over here? Here it is. I need a clean spot. Oh, that is really dry. Let's mist that with fine mist sprayer. You use a normal spray bottle for that, it doesn't matter. I just need the paint to get a little bit wet so that I can push all this back. Okay. And we can do a little bit of a glaze, and I'm gonna need another clean brush that's, let's see, you should work. So I'm going to thin that with water, not too much because it is pretty translucent. A little blue got mixed in there, and that's fine. And I'm going to put additional rays of light and just kind of softly go over that. I'm going to actually get that wet with fine mist sprayer because that is blotchy as heck. There we go. Soften it out. And see how I'm not going over the previous, like some of them will overlap. I'll do it behind the clownfish. And that is really thin, so I'm gonna probably want to dry it before it beads up. Let's see how much that shows up once I dry it. I want to get a little bit more of my blue in there. And this is the transparent mixing white. I'm not loving how, it's too much blue, how dull that white is. There we go. That I'm liking way better. But I do need to get that wet because that is super dry. Kind of beating up because it's too wet now. Let's grab a fine mist or a mop brush. There we go. That's what I want. And that is one way you can get additional rays of light. I just want to make sure, and I'm going to pull a little bit of titanium white so it's more opaque. I'm going to pull it in front of the corals so that it shows up a little bit more. Let's make that one go in front of the clownfish. I'm spreading that so it shows up a little bit more over him. Pull it right onto the other side. That is too harsh right there. Soften that a bit. There we go. Now, this is how we're going to do atmospheres. Atmospheres? Atmosphere. I lied. I need another ray of light. This looks weird. A few more rays of light. That looks better. Okay, let me dry that. And we are going to be flicking paint. And it makes everything look much more underwater. Some of it I want to be, this brush will actually work well. We'll save that. Some of it I want to be focused on the rays of light, but I want little, heavier drops kind of spread all over the place. So I'm going to take some water and some white, titanium white, not transparent mixing white like I almost just grabbed. Let's get some blue in there so it's not just white. Oh, I actually found a palette knife really quickly. That is weird. And I'm going to flick, focusing on the rays of light first. Try to kind of keep them more going in that row, those lines. Smaller brush would probably be easier for this. Let's screw it. These can be the big ones. Big ones all over. Now we've got little particles floating in the water. And I'm going to switch to a smaller brush and focus on the rays of light more. This is another thing. I love doing this sort of, the atmosphere, the flicking paint, because it brings everything together. It makes everything feel like it's so, well, it makes it look like you did a lot more work than you did. But now things start looking more under the water than they previously did. Before they were kind of flat, kind of just stickers stuck on a canvas. Just focusing this a little bit heavier on those rays of light. Let's build this with some more white now. I'm going to test that there, yeah. I'm glad I did because that would have flung a really big thick chunk of paint. In front of the fish also helps him to look like he's in the water. And I want some more thick ones on top of that. I really like those thick dots. Zaylove said, I just joined. Where's your tea from tonight? It just Stash decaf green tea with some raw honey. Not local raw honey because it was way cheaper to get the one from Georgia. Actually, no, this one was Texas. The Nature's Nate, that one's cheaper if it's the one from Georgia than the one from Texas. I forgot. This one was, I went with a different brand because it was cheaper and I'm broke. Okay, I got new phones last week. I'm not going to be spending money for a while. Okay, some big chunks. And I'm holding this back further and just kind of hitting it a bit harder. I need to load that a bit more. And then I will be answering your questions. We are just about done. There we go. I like it. Okay. No, this I will not varnish for at least a day because those chunks of white paint need to be completely dry. And if they're not, and I varnish it, I'll get it'll like kind of, even though it's dry to the touch, it'll smudge it. Oh, I need to sign it too. So let's actually do that. Where did my other brush go? I had 2 white brushes. Oh, you're over here. I'm going to mix that with some aqua and white. And I'm going to sign right down here. Okay. There we go. So do I still drink tea from QT? Yeah, if I ever go. I never go to QT anymore. Lately I've been going to H2, what is it called? I call it HTOT. It's HTO. We've been going there. They have fancier teas, but the cups aren't as good. I just keep washing them and reusing them. Okay, here we go. There is the finished Clownfish underwater painting. Again, you can bid on him. The starting bid is $75. I don't think there's any bids, so you can probably just buy him for $75. Okay, let's go over your questions. Let me get the lid on this. Yeah, I can't remember the last time I got a QT iced tea. I almost always go to HTO. I keep saying HTOT. I know it's wrong, but that's just how I say it. Okay. Oh, we have from Sylvia Anderson said, I was late too. I have to catch the replay. Here's some love for the pups. They're already down. Oh, good catch. That was a good training test. You want a super chat? That's a good boy. Boys, both of you. That was impressive. I'm impressed you both stopped and waited. That was good boys. Thank you so much, Sylvia. Okay. Let's see if my Discord is happening. It is not. Okay. I'm going to scroll up and look here. Were there questions? There might not have been. God, there's like no chat tonight. That was weird. Why are you guys quiet? Like that's, well, some of you are having lag, so that's probably part of it. That is really weird. Like normally I would not be able to scroll to the beginning of a live stream. That is so odd. Well, heck, part of me says just keep painting. Let's see. Well, I can throw this in. If you're not already a member on Patreon, for as little as $6 a month, you get access to every single one of my over 400 lessons. And these are going to be more advanced. These were really taking the time to get that really realistic look. And that is in multiple mediums. If you head over to lockree.com, you can scroll to Patreon and then Patreon videos if you just want to scroll and see all of the videos available. Actually, it's like all of them except the last few months. I need to update that. But there's a lot. And $6 a month, that's like, it's kind of crazy that you can get it for that price because how much individual lessons cost or in-person lessons. Like it is such a deal. Tell us about, okay, I got that one. Whoops, scroll. What are your thoughts on Princeton Aspen brushes? I've not used them, so I don't have any thoughts at all. Wait, no, I have, okay, in my brain just, wait, you were talking about watercolor? I don't know what, do I have those? What are my watercolor brushes? Let's see, what do I have? Oh, they're all kind of floating loose in here. Do I have Princeton Aspen? Do I have Princeton at all? I don't know. What do I have? I've got Robert Simmons. I've got a whole bunch of Creative Mark Mimic. Black, silver, or silver, black velvet. Why is there a Simply Simmons brush in here? That doesn't belong in here. Yeah, I don't think I have any of those, so that I cannot give you anything on. I don't like his white line. I'm going to fix that. If this sells, even if it doesn't sell, I'm going to redo that. I'm going to fix his. This one I like. This one needs to stand out a bit more. Let's see. Missy said, if I try painting on, say, a Michaels level 2 canvas, is it too textured for what you are painting on? Most likely. Put a couple coats of gesso and sand it. It should be fine. I don't know if Michaels has any that are smooth enough. Now, keep in mind, not all canvases are created equally. The Michaels canvases, oh, I almost said swear words. Michaels canvas is the thing that comes out of these corals, not mouths. So are Hobby Lobbies. They are okay to paint on. They have so many problems in the long term. I put more holes through my canvases with Hobby Lobby. I've had warped stretcher bars. I don't use like at all. I do not use generic canvases. I only use Fredrix because I've had so many issues with Michaels and Hobby Lobby. Michaels actually, well, both used to carry Fredrix, but when they started carrying their own, they're bad. They're really bad. So if you're selling your work, you know, that's just stuff to keep in mind. I've had a lot of ruined paintings from bad canvases, and that is really frustrating when you put a lot of time into it. If you're practicing, not a big deal, obviously. But like there's a reason I've had companies that wanted me to only promote their product. I won't do it except for Fredrix because they were already the only canvas I would use because I had so many problems with other canvases. Aaron Brothers used to be a thing. I'd had a lot of problems with Aaron Brothers canvases. Like all of those house brands, Blicks are crap. They're all terrible. So yeah, I'm not a fan of those. That's why I'm always talking about Fredrix because I've just had so many problems with some of these others. But yes, it's probably going to be too rough. Just 2-3 coats of gesso, 220 to 320 grit sandpaper, and just go over it until it's smooth, and you're good as far as a painting surface goes. Regine said, what are your thoughts on... Okay, I got that one. Yeah, I don't know. I've got hundreds of wrapped up in watercolor brushes, and I'm restraining myself from doing the same for acrylic. Okay, so actually now I can talk about that. So you were talking about acrylic. Don't get expensive brushes for acrylic. It's so unnecessary. I use cheap stuff. I mean, my favorite right now, I am obsessed with these Artify brushes. So oh no, wait, that's the same one. It has a little set. The brushes, the handles are a little bit shorter than what I like. They're good brushes and it's cheap, like super cheap. The link might or might not be in the video description. It's probably not because I need to update that. But these are, I did a recent review on these specific brushes. I love them. I love them. So, and they're like, again, cheap. Because I have Amazon affiliate links, I'm not allowed to say the price because that's a weird Amazon thing, but whatever. You can look it up. Again, look at my recent review on them. They're really, really good for the price. Watercolor is different. Watercolor, you need good brushes. The brushes you use make such a difference. With acrylics, it doesn't make that big of a difference. If it's a decent, like Taklon bristle brushes are mostly what you're going to be using. Get a few like synthetic hog hair brushes on top of that, some mop brushes, and you're pretty much good. Some rake brushes. And again, none of these, I don't go expensive on any of these. So you can save a lot of money. Acrylic brushes are not going to be as demanding of quality that watercolor painting is. Cece said, have you ever done a charcoal and acrylic mixed media painting? I've been seeing a lot of videos on them. It looks interesting. What are your thoughts? Though I've not seen anyone do it. The only way that would really work is if you were thinning the acrylics so much that they were essentially a watercolor base, because acrylics are plastic. Charcoal's not going to really stick on that unless it's super, super, super thin down. I don't really know. I'm going to have to, I'll see what videos I can find on that. I don't see a point, except I think it could be really cool, but then I would probably just use watercolor. Although I guess thin down acrylics would be cheaper, but I can't think of a situation where there was something I wanted to create and that would be my combination. Like, again, watercolor and charcoal, yes. Acrylics, I'm just not seeing where that's, I'm not saying it can't be done, and I'm not saying it couldn't be amazing. I could make something amazing out of it. I just don't see the point, versus other mediums make more sense to me as far as mixed media goes. So, but like I said, I've not seen the videos you're talking about. I might look at that and go, ooh, I'm going to do that. I'm not, so, you know, don't hold me to it, but in like just off the top of my head right now, I don't really see where I would personally want to. Oh, the link is in my supply list. Yay. Holy crap. I actually got caught up in there were so few questions. We got caught up on that too. I guess yay for lag, kind of. I'm hooked on that tea, like the honey again. I went through a phase where I was not drinking much of my green tea with honey, and I am back on that phase. It's decaf. Caffeinated is way better, but you know, I'm old, I can only handle so much. So yeah, it's so good though. It just tastes like summer to me. Oh, Lily said I was trying to paint along in work doing this, so I can't talk in work. Yours looks great, mine not so much. You know, take your time and go over it. You can rework it. Like I'm looking at mine. If this doesn't sell, I'm going to pull out the highlight. Like I will be pulling more out. I'd probably put more detail into some of this because I'd have more time. But, you know what am I? No, I won't do that. But yeah. When SGWW said, I like to paint on various boards. Yeah, you know, I like painting on wood boards too, and I've done it in the past. The concern is I don't know how to tell what wood's been treated with something and what's not, because over time that may cause yellowing and may cause different issues. You'd always need to put a primer. And I don't know if you mean like an art board or not, but it just got me thinking about like, you can, like people will go get plywood and paint on that, but one, they warp unless you make a really solid frame, and then they're really heavy. But they're also, depending on the wood, what was it treated with? Some wood is going to seep through no matter what you paint on it, kind of yellow stuff. So like you'd have to put a really good gesso, which I personally just do not know enough about to know what's safe to use. And so I just never do it. But I have done it in like years and years and years ago. And that was fun, but we did a big collage at my church, like back in California years ago. So that like, yeah, God, that would have been over 20 years ago. Dang, I'm old. But they had several artists do different like pieces, and it all went together to make one image, but every image was different. It was really cool. But we initially painted those on plywood, and I don't know how those held up long term. I have no idea. Deborah said, they say if you have allergies, get honey locally and it helps. Beautiful as always. Love the splatter. Thank you. And yeah, for the honey, sort of. So turns out, Nick taught me this. So I noticed that it would really make a difference if it was for spring. But honey didn't put a dent. Local honey would not help my fall allergies. And it turns out it's just a difference. Nick, correct me if I'm screwing this up. I'm going to so butcher what he told me. But something like the beekeepers do not collect honey from bees during the fall because they let them keep it so, you know, it gets them through winter. And so that's why it does not work on my fall allergies or something like that. I just butchered that. That's probably not full of any facts at all, but, you know, Nick can correct me. Yeah, that was kind of... let's see, when SGWW said, I watched a video about using a medium by Golden to seal the wood. That's interesting. Oh, Nick said I got it right. So yeah, the other thing is the honey. So Texas is huge. Texas is bigger than like most countries. So they would say like local Texas, but they were actually getting it from South Texas, which may as well be a different country. So it's kind of funny because like Oklahoma would be closer to me than most of Texas. But there's also that, because I started looking up some of the honeys that they sell that said they were local. The place they were actually getting it from was so friggin' far away. Like it wasn't even the same, like South Texas is not the same. So that was kind of an interesting thing too. Same process for aluminum boards. Yeah, I've not seen any of those. That's interesting. I want to watch more art videos on stuff I don't know a lot about that. I need to start educating myself on some of this other stuff. Let's see. Fran said, if you're in the Midwest, they send their hives to California and other warm places in the winter. So even though it said local, oh, that's interesting. I did not know that either. Yeah, it was funny because when I first moved to Texas, my allergies were so bad. I had a hard time adjusting. And I started drinking a lot of local honey. And that's what kind of calmed it down for that spring and summer. But yeah, fall's always terrible for me. Let's see. What else can we chat about? I know there were things I wanted to tell you guys about. So next week we are doing is next week the ferret? Where's my notepad? Hold on. Screen's all dirty because French Fry likes to eat snacks on my tablet. And I let him because he's too cute to tell him no. So next week we are doing... Really? That was next week's? Hold on. I thought next week was the ferret. I guess it's... March... Yeah. Okay, so the 19th, March 19th, so 2 weeks is the ferret. And that one I think is pan pastel and colored pencil. And then next week is the lion in charcoal. So we're doing another charcoal one. And then I think what I'm going to do for that is the 26th. I think we're going to do a art critique. I've had a lot of requests lately for another critique. So, and by a lot of requests, I mean like 2 people. It's not that much. But you ask me often enough and I remember. So that will be open to Patreon members. If you're not already a member, be a member before then, because I will end up making a post so that you can submit finished artwork that you've done for critique. Zay said, what originally interested you in surrealism? I'm just big on anything fantasy. Like, I love Alice in Wonderland, for example. Like, I just like that, like, weird. I love weird. I love things that are put together that don't fit together, like that shouldn't go together. I just love that. I don't know why. I mean, I started with painting marine life. That was like the only thing I was interested in the beginning. And that kind of progressed to where I like the idea of space being underwater. And it just kind of gets your mind going as you're painting, thinking of like, what if I did this instead? And it just grew from there. And when I remember back in, when was this, 2007, I think? I had a friend who got an apartment, a new apartment, and I wanted to do a gift for him. And because it was a dude, I'm thinking he probably doesn't want, like, he's a dude who lives in New Hampshire. I doubt that he's interested in whales, like my orcas and the stuff. Like he's more into foresty stuff. And so I did this painting just trying to think like, what would a guy want for their apartment that likes the forest? And so it was looking, you were inside kind of a cave looking into, I was thinking of it as sort of a portal. There was a tree. I think there was an earth in the cave. I don't even remember on his. It was the first of my scene inside a scene paintings that I was doing. And it was terrible. Like looking back at it, I have photos somewhere. If I ever come across them, I'll post them. It was the first, like it was the beta and it was terrible. And then it was one of those things, well, how do I make that better? And it turned into like, let's do a wallpaper background instead of this weird, really badly inside of a cave texture or rock texture. I don't even remember what I was trying to go with on that. I do remember it being bad. But I mean, we're almost 20 years ago, so it's been a while. But it kind of progressed. So I painted that, and then I thought, well, I like elements of that one. What if I did that, but a wallpaper, a damask background instead of the weird rocky thing? And then I did that one, and well, what if water's spilling out over? Well, what the what ifs kind of took off. And as I continued down the path of what ifs, I just kept coming up with more and more ideas that I liked. And I've always enjoyed other surreal artists' work. So the more I see of that and the more I experimented on my own, that's just what I really got much more interested in. And it's something that ends up being very unique to you when you paint something surreal. So like use your skills for doing realism, but combine it with the surreal aspect of things. It makes it more real to you. Plus, like I think I mentioned a moment ago, I really like fantasy stuff, like fantasy books. I don't read or listen to normal books at all. If there's not a dragon, vampire, or werewolf, magic, if there's none of that in there, I'm rarely interested. I've read a few that I actually enjoyed a lot. Ayn Rand, I probably pronounced her name wrong. Loved her books. Atlas Shrugged, great book. But you know, there's very few books that were not based on fantasy that I enjoyed. So yeah, I just like the weird fantasy stuff. Let's see. Dee said, what program do you use for digital art on your Samsung tablet? I'm using ArtRage, right? I think you guys can correct. I'm fairly certain it's ArtRage that I use. One SGWW said, I love how your brain works when planning pieces. Mine is so concrete that I can't plan surreal ones like you. Yeah, there's definitely, you have to have a flexibility to that. And it's funny because the video I'm editing right now for like a big YouTube one, the one I did of my ravens and the flowers, that was one that required a lot of flexibility because I started it without knowing how I was going to finish it. Yeah, I started not where I normally have the whole thing in my head or, you know, drawn out or whatever. I did not on this one. All I knew, I wanted ravens, and I put it off and and I'll talk more about that in that video, but it's like, I wasn't sure where I was going with it. So yeah, I don't usually, yeah, you have to be flexible with surrealism for sure. But you could even, like, let's say you wanted to get into surrealism, but you're like, my mind doesn't work that way. I don't come up with these good ideas that I've seen this other artist do, and I love theirs, but I never come up with ideas like that. The easiest way you can get started with surrealism, and it's funny because I had someone try to argue with me, well, that's not really surrealism. look it up. Look up the definition. But you can just take like 3 random objects. Like I think it was the painting I did with the goldfish, the fork, and a cactus. And I combined, and the goldfish is wearing a leash that's wrapped. He's kind of swimming by he's like, I call it the hitching post. It's the fork that's taped to a cactus. You can just take 3 random things. So in this one, element, tape, fork, cactus, oh, that's 4, goldfish, and combine them in some weird combination, come up with it in Photoshop, now go paint that. Now you can do surrealism too, even if you feel like your mind isn't that creative. Just look up, you can ask ChatGPT, is great for this. Give me 10, I will usually tell it, like, give me 10 ideas, or 10 things, like 3 different animals, 2 items found in a home, you know, that sort of thing. Pick 3 of those or 4 of those that you like and figure out how to combine those into one painting. And now you are going to have something that's fairly unusual and can fall within the category of surrealism. So yeah, that is definitely, but you can be pre-planned out. Like I do that in Photoshop first normally. The Ravens was different because I had to get started. I had to get some lessons for Patreon up, but I was like stuck on, I don't know where to go with this. Like to the point where I started doubting myself, like, why can't I think of anything? This is weird. Why can't I decide on anything? And I know the reason for that was that it was for me. I wanted it to be everything I loved. So then I was being extra picky because it's going on my wall. So it was a whole thing. But anyway, there we go. Thank you so much for joining tonight. Make sure to check out our moderators channel. Nick Joseph, he has live streams almost every week. He had taken a break. Are you back yet? I haven't seen your notifications come up. So either way, check him out. He's doing a lot of stuff on YouTube. Also, check out Nick's channel. He doesn't upload often, but when he does, it's really good. And there is some stuff on there you may want to watch, good tips on stuff. So anyway, check them out. And I will see you guys next week for the charcoal lion. We'll really be focusing on values next week. Bye. Oh, wait, no, sorry, just kidding. We got an art by MB. Hold on, I can't change my, oh man, there we go. I shut this one thing down too soon. You want a last super chat? Thank you so much. They thank you too. And we're done, so I'm not even going to make you guys lay down. I'll see you guys next week. Bye.